That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea.
Thought I would win against Anthony, but here I am with a broken jaw, learning the hard way. I'll heal, and I'll be back.
So picture this. The Kaseya Center in Miami was buzzing with this electric energy that you could practically taste in the air. Then boom, everything changed in a heartbeat. Anthony Joshua's right hand connected clean in round 6, and honestly it didn't just drop Jake Paul to the mat, it completely sucked the life out of that entire building. Like someone hit a mute button on 15,000 people all at once.
6, 7, 8.
That right hand landed with surgical precision, and the moment it happened, every camera in the arena captured something nobody could deny anymore. This wasn't Jake slipping on some moisture or catching an unlucky break. This wasn't material for his next YouTube upload or some clever comeback story. Just moments before, Jake had been moving around that ring like he owned the place. Loose, confident, feeding off the crowd energy like always. But now, completely different reality. Medical team rushing in, his jaw completely destroyed, the fight over whether he liked it or not, and years of carefully built narrative crashing down live on television. That shocking flip from confidence to catastrophe hit everyone watching like a freight train. This wasn't just another L on the record books that gets forgotten. This was the moment a protected illusion died in front of millions. Man, he walked straight into that bomb. Jake Paul's entire boxing journey was mapped out like a business strategy from day one. Every opponent got handpicked for maximum reward with minimum actual risk. Every matchup calculated for the best possible outcome. He stayed away from the real killers early on and focused on names that brought eyeballs and pay-per-view money without bringing genuine danger. Aging legends past their best days, smaller guys who couldn't match his physical advantages, athletes from other sports who lacked boxing-specific skills. The blueprint worked perfectly for years. 12 victories, 7 by knockout, and the resume looked legitimate on paper. Millions of people bought into the narrative completely. Media coverage amplified every win because controversy sells. Social media exploded with every victory because drama drives engagement. Critics got labeled as jealous traditionalists who couldn't adapt to modern boxing.
Boxing is not a game. Fighting is not something you pick up and mess around with, right? If you're a fighter, if you're a boxer, if you're a mixed martial artist, right, you have to take this seriously and you have to respect the game.
But here's what nobody wanted to acknowledge about that whole operation. It only functions when every single detail stays perfectly managed. Jake always dictated the terms, the timing, the conditions. Size advantages were crucial, but often overlooked. Weight differences mattered more than people realized. Experience gaps were massive, but cleverly disguised behind flashy promotion. All of that stayed buried under highlight packages and overwhelming self-promotion. The real threat was never one particular fighter on one particular evening. The real threat was buying into your own marketing so completely that you forget where the limits actually are. Believing that success under controlled circumstances would somehow translate against an elite championship-level heavyweight with decades of experience. Anthony Joshua destroyed that fantasy permanently. This wasn't some fun celebrity boxing exhibition or novelty entertainment event. Joshua showed up as exactly what his record says he is. A legitimate heavyweight champion with 26 knockouts and zero interest in playing game. He didn't need social media drama or manufactured beef to justify his presence. Right from the opening bell, the skill gap was impossible to ignore. Jake Paul wasn't really boxing in there. He was holding on, grabbing desperately, trying to turn it into a wrestling match, doing everything possible to survive something he couldn't handle through technique. The speed difference, the timing advantage, the sheer power were overwhelming from minute one. Honestly, the outcome was decided the moment the bell rang.
Counter right. There's the right hand. Jake Paul goes down again. Man, he's put.
Joshua never panicked or rushed anything throughout the entire bout. He didn't chase some highlight reel moment for the cameras. He just stayed patient and waited for his opening to present itself. Round 5 brought the warning signs that everyone could see clearly. Jake hit the canvas hard, then again, touching down a second time. Each knockdown drained more confidence from his face and body language. Round 6 wasn't dramatic when it finally happened. It was just physics playing out naturally. One perfectly timed right hand with flawless placement. The Kaseya Center watching a clinic unfold.
Best shot at the moment. Not that much is going to happen. And it almost...
When Jake couldn't answer the referee's count, the numbers painted a picture that was absolutely devastating to process. His first knockout defeat ever, something he'd successfully avoided until this moment, his second loss overall on an otherwise impressive record, now sitting at 12 wins and 2 defeats, and statistics don't negotiate. Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua collected his 29th victory and 26th knockout like he was punching a time clock. Just another day's work. Nothing unusual. Jake left that building with a fractured jaw requiring immediate surgery, hospitalization that stretched for days, and a liquid diet planned for weeks ahead. You can debate scorecards and argue about decisions. You can spin close rounds and controversial call, but you absolutely cannot argue with broken bones. That's a receipt written in permanent ink.
About your social media following.
Bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what, a lot of people watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to get what they finally been waiting for.
The fight.
The real damage didn't stop when the referee stepped in to wave things off. That's what everyone keeps missing in all the post-fight analysis. The final bell didn't protect Jake from anything meaningful. The 10 count didn't end the actual consequences that were coming. The serious stuff started afterward, when the adrenaline faded completely and reality showed up with medical bills, x-rays, and doctors who don't care about subscriber counts or viral content, shattered jaw requiring surgical reconstruction, hospital stay for monitoring and repair work. That's not content for a comeback video or material for social media motivation posts. That's your skeleton filing a formal lawsuit against your ambition, and there's no appealing that verdict. Almost immediately, everything shifted dramatically. The constant trash talk vanished from his platform. Tweet frequency dropped to nearly nothing. The same person who documented every breath of his career in real time went completely silent, because when your jaw is wired shut and you're consuming meals through a straw for weeks, confidence feels different. Way different. This wasn't a black eye that disappears in a few days or some bruised ribs you can tape up. This was a harsh reminder that when you step in with a genuine heavyweight carrying genuine power, the consequences don't end when the broadcast cuts to commercial. All that bravado looks great under press conference lights. It looks pathetic in a hospital bed waiting for surgery.
Fight for a second. It happened in the 6th round, and it happened in a 22-foot ring. A typical ring is 20 foot. This one was 22 foot because he wanted a bigger room to operate, a bigger space, a bigger ring, somewhere.
That brutal contrast is exactly why this moment resonated so deeply with everyone watching. Hours earlier, Jake was strutting confidently, posing for photographers, absorbing all the attention like usual. Now he's surrounded by medical professionals discussing recovery schedules and surgical procedures. That's why this defeat felt different from anything that came before. Fans can joke about decision losses and move forward. They can create memes from knockdowns for entertainment, but surgical procedures and broken bones aren't entertainment material for anyone. That's accountability showing up with an invoice. Boxing's version of a receipt you can't return or exchange. And while Jake was consulting with doctors and confronting reality, Dana White was confronting something completely talent, being absolutely right and having that correctness proven in the most brutal way imaginable. Dana wasn't jumping into this conversation after the knockout occurred. He'd been sounding alarms about this matchup long before contracts got signed. He publicly called it a terrible idea, repeatedly, flat out stated that Jake was entering territory he didn't belong in, something completely over his head. At the time, people dismissed it easily, said Dana was bitter about influencer boxing, said he resented the crossover trend, said he was threatened by Jake's popularity disrupting traditional boxing.
I need to give this guy a systematic breakdown. I know what type of fighter he is, and I said I'm going to take his soul, and I said I'm going to see it leaving his body round after round, and when the time comes, some people are just there to get knocked out. And I said it, and that's exactly what happened.
That's where everything starts, completely falling apart mentally for Jake Paul. Because physical recovery happens over time with proper medical care, but psychological recovery is infinitely more complicated. After the fight, Jake claimed he staggered Anthony Joshua at certain moments, insisted he won specific rounds on the unofficial scorecards. And sure, that's normal human psychology, that's the bargaining stage everyone experiences. But his body language revealed a completely different truth for anyone watching closely. The slow exit from the arena, the 1,000-yard stare into nothing, the way he spoke without his trademark confidence and edge. You could hear it in his tone. Something fundamental broken. This marked his first knockout loss in his entire boxing career. Losing a decision damages your record and bruises your ego, absolutely. But getting knocked unconscious changes how you see yourself as a fighter forever. It forces questions you can't edit out or algorithm away. Jake has always been brilliant at controlling narratives. Finding new opponents, creating fresh angles, spinning new storylines. But when you're laid out flat, unconscious, unable to continue, there's no creative editing available, and the gap between losing and being stopped is enormous psychologically. A decision loss gives you room to argue and debate. A knockout ends every conversation immediately. Your ego doesn't just get bruised, it gets shattered completely. Suddenly, the calculated shortcuts don't seem so brilliant anymore. Suddenly, the risks feel real in your body. And suddenly the sport stops feeling like content creation and starts feeling like actual warfare with permanent consequences. That transformation didn't just impact Jake personally, it spread through his entire organization. Logan Paul felt the shockwaves too deeply. Before the fight, Logan was vocal and confident, surfing the hype wave like always, backing his brother publicly. After the knockout, that energy disappeared entirely because the Paul brand has always been constructed around complete control, controlled chaos, controlled storylines, controlled risk management. And for the first time, they lost control entirely and publicly. You can't edit hospital visits into positive content. You can't spin fractured bones into victory narratives. You can't protect your brother from basic physics and reality. That's when spectacle becomes personal. And that's the quiet aftermath nobody was prepared to handle. The moment when everyone, from fans to promoters to other fighters, had to confront a serious question. How far is too far in this influencer boxing experiment? Because this wasn't entertainment that accidentally went wrong. This was a reality check delivered at heavyweight velocity. And once that door opens to genuine consequences, you can't close it again. Jake Paul didn't just lose a fight on his professional record, he lost the illusion that rules bend indefinitely in his favor. And once that illusion shatters completely, every future step feels infinitely heavier. This fight quietly murdered the entire concept of safe crossover boxing as a viable long-term strategy. The unwritten rule was always perfectly clear to everyone inside the sport. Influencers stay in the shallow end where it's safe, not in the deep water with the predator. Jake Paul crossed that boundary intentionally. And Anthony Joshua made absolutely certain no one forgets the lesson. This wasn't hype colliding with hype and some manufactured drama. This was hype running headfirst into levels it couldn't reach, regardless of effort invested. Immediately, promoters became nervous about future crossover matchups. Fighters grew cautious about accepting these celebrity fights, and fans stopped treating the whole thing like a joke. Real boxers don't need influencer paychecks badly enough to risk becoming the next cautionary tale. Joshua wired shut, reputation questioned, legacy permanently damaged. That single knockout sent shockwaves through the entire crossover combat sports industry. For Jake, there are no clean escape routes remaining. The record is permanent now, etched in stone. First knockout defeat, second loss overall, no rematch clause to invoke, no moral victory to claim. Fans are divided between sympathy and "we told you so" repeatedly. Sponsors examine the risks more carefully now. Opponents think twice before signing contract. Credibility suddenly carries a real cost. And the final reality is simple and undeniable. Boxing doesn't care about follower counts or social media influence. Dana White didn't defeat Jake Paul personally. Physics handled that job efficiently. Anthony Joshua didn't just collect another win for his record. He enforced a boundary that desperately needed enforcing. This wasn't scandal or controversy. This was gravity doing what gravity always does, pulling everything back down to ground level eventually.